G'day there, Aussie Stern, country Victorian gamer of Star Wars Armada, Star Wars Legion, X-Wing, Dystopian Wars, Battletech, Flames of War, many more games. Today I am starting to paint my Cade Bane for Star Wars Legion. Now, if you have been a member of my channel or have watched my previous videos, you would have seen that I picked up Cade Bane from Garfies Games through eBay here in Australia. I was pleasantly surprised that I received a second Cade Bane in a slightly different pose than the one that I was expecting, but actually that turned out to be quite handy in that I can make some test colors to test how it would look on the model without destroying the model with too much paint. So the first step, of course, with Cade Bane is needing to decide when or which era I want to paint him as. As we have seen in the Star Wars universe, we have two versions of Cade Bane. We have seen him in Clone Wars in the animation series that was set way back in the fall of the Republic era, pretty much, or yeah. Then, more recently, we have seen him in the Book of Boba, which is New Republic era, pretty much. And there is a lot of gap between it. I think some of the writers think that it's maybe 30 to 40 years between the two, like all the way to the Book of Boba. Personally, I don't know off the top of my head what year conventions everything would fit into the time frame, but we already know from the animation series that Cade Bane was obviously had to have been an adult at that time. He had to be quite knowledgeable about his interactions, etc. We also know from the expanded universe literature that the Duros age span is very much similar to a human, which basically 0 to 100 sort of thing, somewhere around there. So for him to be already an adult in the likes of the Clone Wars series, even a mid-age 30s, 40s, at that point in time, you're thinking that he's going to be fairly old in the Book of Boba era, so 60s, 70s, also like that. We notice that there are two main distinctions between Book of Boba and the Clone Wars version of Cade Bane, in that his flesh tones, or his skin, is a lot paler. He's still wearing the same clothes that he's wearing, the dust coat and stuff like that, which makes me think that he must have like a whole rack of same coloured suits in his wardrobe. But the skin colour has notably paled over the era. So if I went for the Clone Wars version of him, I would be looking at a lot richer blue tones for his skins. Going with the Book of Boba, I would be looking for a paler colour. Let me show you. So here we have the two versions of Cade Bane side by side. You can see that the colorations of the outfit pretty much the same. Gauntlet, slightly different coloration, but essentially the same as well. And of course, the more important factor is the skin tone being that really rich blue color in the Clone Wars version rather than a pale version in the Book of Boba. The one that I have done so far as my test piece is the pale version. And I think that I've done him quite well in many ways. Let me just get some extra light on him. Yeah. And this will end up being what I do for my second one as well. Obviously, I haven't fully completed painting every little thing, but as test pieces goes, this shows what colorations I'm going to use. So my first task is obviously to paint up a lot of the main color from his boots, pants, trench coat and under jacket, all using this Rhinox hide dark brown color. You can also use potentially a oak brown color as well. Both of them are pretty nice dark colors of the brown. And I want to saturate all the model of this area without trying to touch the likes of his hands, the gauntlets, or the facial area. So I want to try and get as much of this area done as possible. Now that the initial dark brown color of Rhinox hide has been added, we now need to lighten up the outer side of the colors using a similar brown, but a lot lighter. This time I'm going to try this leather brown around all of the coat area. I'm adding a little bit of water to it to thin it out even more, as I still want it fairly dark, but I just want to lighten it ever so slightly. And I'm only touching the outsides. We're also going to add this oak brown for the hat. We can use this same color brown also on belt and holsters. the more different color browns that we can incorporate into this model, the more it will look as though he's wearing a mix match of different types of fabric styles, different types of brown leathers, fabric styles in terms of whether it be sleek materials. There we go. Now that the brown is nice and dried, we now need to start on the next types of colours. So we still have the blue to go around the gauntlet and also the blue on the flesh. For both of the blues, I'm using this electric blue as a base colour, and then I'm using dead white to lighten it for the skin tone. But then I'm using also this Macragge blue to darken some of it for the actual gauntlets. So easiest way of doing it is by doing it slightly drops on your wet palette of whatever you use. And mix. So what we want is a nice thin brush. Take a small amount of the blue, mix it into the white. As you can see, it's already quite paled now, but we want it even more paler. We want it almost a white. So just add in a bit more. There you can see that it's really quite light in comparison. And that's the type of blue that I'm going to use for the flesh. Obviously, after mixing, clean your brush before you redo it. And what you'll want is a fairly thin brush. Then once we've done the face, we've got to do the hands. And that gives us the flesh. With the opposite way, getting it a bit darker, for the gauntlets, we start off with some darker blue and add in a small amount of the rich blue to lighten it up. To that colour. So that's the original. That little smear is the Macragge blue. And that's the white blue that I've made. And this ever so slightly darker blue is going to be for the gauntlets. I can, if I wanted to, add in a little bit of the white to lighten it up some. But if I do that too much, it will turn into a much light of this tone. I want to keep this dark blue tone, but more in the way of a rich color. Like so. And there, we've got the blue tones done. Obviously still some cleanup to do. But once that dried, we'll go on to the black and the metals. So we've got the flesh tone, we've got the leathers. We've only got 3 sections still to do. We've got the black on the gloves and around the mask, and then the metal on the tubing, as well as some detail work on the gauntlets. The black we just need to do over the open area of the glove. And just cleaning up that section. The mask is a little bit more difficult because we've got to get underneath this area here. It is a good idea just to keep some of that blue color just in case we go over areas where we don't want. We can thin down the black ever so slightly with a little bit of water, but this will mean that it will quite possibly leak or spread out more than what we would want it to. Yeah, this is probably the most delicate area. This area just around the edge of the pipe, which also happens to be black. Now, it doesn't matter if the pipe does get black on it, because I'm still going to be painting over it in that metal color as well, so that makes it a little bit easier. Using a small brush, getting in as close as possible. And drawing it back. And just very little amount of paint on the brush in question. Back to the other glove. Now this one is slightly different because it's an open palm, so you need to make sure that you paint on the inside as well. Now, on pictures of the gauntlets, there's a section that is black for a speaker. So we do that. Well, we've got some black. And we also need to do the mouth area. Now, I typically don't use black, Abaddon black, for that mouth shading. I prefer using a little bit of this null oil, simply because I can lighten it a lot more to just go into that crevice of that mouth a lot easier than it is with paint. And all I need to do is just use a little bit of water to just lighten it up. And there you can see it's just nicely in. With the eyes, I paint it with this Memphis Stone red, and then once dry, I use this orange fire for the inner iris. And all I want to do is just look down into the model, find where the eye is, and the way that the brow is that his eyes are going to be really close up to his head. The hat, actually. Yeah. You can see with this eye, it's still a little bit over large. What I'll do is, once it's dry, I'll come back over with that light blue color that I've got over here on the palette and clean that up around the edges with an ultra fine brush. Then the metal, which is a gunmetal, I'll be using for all of the buttons or at least most of the buttons on the gauntlet. I should also say that there is, I believe, a red button on one side of it. Yep, that side and that side. So I gotta do a red there. Not quite getting. And red there. And then these buttons up the top. The belt buckle. Exposed edge of the pistol. And then the piping. To his life support system out the back here. And there we have it. Pretty much all the base colors on. And like, I could leave it like that. Varnish it. But now I'm going to go and do the finer detail, cleaning up the model at the same time, and put those oranges and clean up the around the eye. And I'll come back and show you the final product soon. And now, with his eyes done, the base done, it's pretty much all complete, both of them. Obviously, I still need to do the varnishing. And then on this one, I'm also going to be putting a bit of sand on the bottom. But that's about it. Okay, so that's basically Cade Bane. The model itself from Garfies Game is really good, and I really enjoyed the two different poses that I had. One being the more traditional gunslinger, the other one being the idea of the stranger sort of thing that as he walks into town. Both models I will use on occasion, depending on the circumstances. I do think that if I've had a separatist force as well, I'd probably do the base in a different color for one of them to denote one being for the Clone Wars type model, while the other one being more for the Book of Boba model. But seeing I will run primarily Galactic Civil War, I won't need that. My next videos that I will be doing in about a month's time will be revolving around the AT-DT that I got from Garfies Game at the same time, looking at actually assembling it as well as splitting it up into different sections for the painting process. But for now, from Aussie Stern, please like, please subscribe, leave a comment if you're interested in this or any of my other videos. But for now, I will see you next time on the table. Bye for now.